See, Pacemaker is different. You're thinking of McCree's gun.
Ah, the Pacemaker. That's his gun.
Sets the pace at which the enemy dies.
Does.
No one's running a McCree.
And on the next
so
patch, that pace
right.
has been increased, but on this patch, we're still playing 3-3, 3-2-1 Xavier. Mushrooms in the mix now, Rod Tongue's back as well.
Mushrooms
changes.
in the mix. Tell you, that's how I like my stir fry.
Good.
Yeah. That was a huge biotic grenade. It doesn't result in any kills, but it does result in a healthy amount of ultimate charge for sleep.
4 members got caught there. Thitticorn's actually not doing too bad, keeping up, and now we have the rotation finally on point.
There's a hook. They've got the bubbles there. They're going to be just fine. Mushroom sort of physically keeping Bello within that same bubble that he had on himself. Xavier just absorbing this pressure quite handily on the point. Now Fallen's starting to push in so that they don't just get a third for free. They end up going 1-for-1 here.
It's in trouble.
Coupling. Can't really go for that res, unfortunately. It would put Recall too vulnerable, so MG is going to try to swoop in. And it's getting a little bit dicey here on both sides of the fence, but on the point itself, Xavier are mostly getting more work done. Another huge biotic grenade, but this time Cyclone Coupling are nowhere near a position where they can follow up on it.
And that's because THK has just been pushing members out. You can see how far behind Sleep and both him and Lee Chang-soon are, and that's because, I mean, you have one D.Va player pushing on top of them, Recall's there pocketing it as well, and while that's happening, that's 3 members gone, while TOT, Fallen, and MG try and contest the point. If Lee Chang-soon isn't there landing shots, and he was getting a couple of nice hits in there, got himself a kill, he's a bit of a timer that you have to work against if you're in Xavier, because if you don't do enough damage, you don't win fast enough, Lee Chang-soon might just kill your whole team. But if you can put a D.Va up there, can push him away, you can see his health bar got low, he got pressured out, then suddenly you're much better off to try and take that point as the supports are away, as that main DPS plays away.
We do have a bit of a pause coming out, but on the whole, this has been a solid start for Xavier. It's certainly looking cleaner in what is a similar approach as what they had on Volskaya Industries when they were running 3-3. Like, they weren't super slow in the rotation. They were relatively quick. They were relatively clean. Didn't take too much spam and poke. Set up nicely on the point. And on the whole, just executed nicely from there. And, like, you'll also say the parts of it where Cyclone Coupling also didn't get as much mileage in their own right. They could have maybe still got a pick. We'd be saying something very different right now. But at the end of the day, Xavier have been able to cap the card in a pretty good time.
And now pushing through to B, I wonder what's going to happen here. More so on the side of Cyclone Coupling, where they have members still alive. It's not like they're getting an easy reset here. They didn't die, so if you are someone like Lee Chang-soon, you don't want to be playing the winner anymore, which is probably not going to be as effective on streets. You now have to either go all the way back to base, or you have to jump off the map, and you're starting to think maybe it would have been better if I just ran on the point, sold it for a little bit, and died anyway. You still have a Mercy being played. The Ana you'll probably keep, but at this sort of point, you are expecting Cyclone Coupling to maybe push towards more of a 3-3 standard here. Whereas Xavier are kind of already on that, so they're going to be snowballing through onto B fairly comfortably.
It's a bit of an odd kind of map for a Widowmaker. Because there's like, in terms of sightlines, there's just the one, really. It's like,
not unless you're...
I suppose 2, because
not
you
unless
look
you're from the cinematic
direction. Yeah, like, I don't know, like just fully just standing on the roof.
But that was only on point A. That's why it's effective.
Exactly. That's the thing. If they had taken that fight on point B, Tracer would have won. Mondada would still be alive.
But then you wouldn't be able to fit all the people for that.
Exactly.
Whatever that was.
And that's the thing. It just doesn't work out. It's too narrow.
Plus, there's a lot of anti-Omnic stuff further down on King's Row, so you just couldn't
it's
do
like,
it.
ooh, this is maybe not a place to bring out a Omnic public figure, like with all the rude graffiti and everything. Yeah. I like to think that like they scrubbed all the graffiti around that square before Mondada got there, but they're like, it's one street over, who cares? People won't notice. We did.
How do you exit King's Row? Like, I don't see a way to get out of King's Row.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bus there, actually. There's a bus.
Actually, a subway there. I just remember there is actually
so there's a few points of egress.
You enter, that's your entry point for that uprising.
Everyone's got to take the tube to and from. It's a very crowded situation. It's always quite fun, I think, riding underground trains in big cities, because we aren't in a big city, which means public transport is inherently disappointing. You catch like the metro in Paris or the tube in London, and it's like, oops, I missed one. Oh well, next one's in 2 minutes. Like it doesn't even matter. You just
and they go between Paris and London too.
It's a new feature. Like they've even done that one too. You know what's so incredible about that is like they were technically off by, but like it was a small enough margin that it didn't matter. If you look at how far they had to dig those tunnels. And they didn't have the same kind of technology as we have now. Like it was very hard to like know that you're going in the right direction, and you're also drilling through different kinds of soil. The fact that it was like as lined up as it was is genuinely mind-blowing. Channel Tunnel,
Yeah.
that's some... right there.
Strike water on one of those, and it's like, oh,
Yeah, oops,
that's the wrong move.
Oops. Oh, no more tunnel.
No, I'll put the dirt back really quickly.
But now we just run submarines through instead of trains. It's still fine. Hey, don't worry about it. Just make it airtight. It still goes. Whatever. It's not how it works. But that is cool, right? Like, I don't know. That strikes me as cool. It's going to be really awkward when they have to cut it in half after Brexit.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, we've left. Sorry, can't.
They got to bend it around. It bends back into.
Yeah, it actually links up at Bristol now. It's just a really long-winded way of getting there, unfortunately. Oh, that's really all I've got. That's all my jokes prepared tonight, so thank you very much. You know what really
do they check your documents before you get on the train, I suppose? You pass the halfway mark, it's like, now we're heading into France.
I mean, you would have to.
And then the guy on the train starts checking your documents.
So I've caught that before, but I mean, it was just like you could move freely at that time, so it didn't really matter. You just drive your car on and then drive your car back off. We used to drive, because we lived in the UK and we had family in the Netherlands, so we would get on a train that took us like under the sea, and then we'd end up in France, and then we'd drive through Belgium and end up at like 4 whole countries in like an afternoon. That's just, you can just do that in Europe. If we want to get to another country here, it's like 3-hour flight minimum. And it's not even that exciting a country.
Where's the underwater channel between Sydney and Auckland?
I know, right?
What's going on there?
It's like there's been some pushes to
dig that up.
Try and get like a tunnel or something like that between Korea and Japan. It's never happened. But I just like those really wacky, like over-ambitious engineering projects. Like, did you know the Dutch, for a while, were proposing to build a mountain? Because they're like, you know what, we're good with earthworks. Why don't we just build a mountain? And they're like, yeah, it's like tourism dollars. You can train your Olympic skiers and stuff on it. Then they did the math on it. It turns out, in order to put enough mass in place to build the mountain, the entire country would actually sink even further below sea level. They're like, maybe we don't do that.
They got to get their dirt from elsewhere. They got to get it from another country.
Yeah, it's like really just like you take a mountain out of the Alps and just
pop it down. Like when you move house, sometimes you put the house on a trailer and then you just pop it down.
Yeah, like man, I hope to have that sort of money one day where like when I move house, I literally just move my house because I can do that.
No, if you have the kind of money, you just build a new house. That's really having that kind of money.
I knew someone who had so much money.
Old house.
This guy's like the president of the Ferrari club, and he bought an historic mansion and wanted to move it out to this huge plot of land that he had bought sort of out in a more rural part, like on the outskirts of the city. So he transported this mansion. They had to break it up into like 5 different pieces, drive them on trucks down to this, reassemble it on the site, and then no joke, after about 2 years of living there, he's like, I'm too far away from the city. So they sold it and moved back to town.
Nice.
Imagine having that much money that you don't care that you're not getting the most out of this house that you've invested so much money into. It blows my mind.
Reassemble it like a Lego piece. Love it.
I know. Like when you...
At that point, you could like be creative with it. You can...
Put the attic in the basement and
exactly
put the east wing and the west wing.
Yeah, wings.
Yeah, as soon as your house is large enough to have wings, I mean, for one thing, it flies. But in all seriousness, like as soon as you can refer to a part of your house as like, oh, over in the eastern wing, you know, here's the second kitchen. It's like, what? Hello? When you have like on-site cooks and stuff.
I'm just impressed you got friends that are presidents of Ferrari clubs. That's new.
Friends in high places. Yeah.
That's different. What happened to you? I mean,
I know. I made a friend a couple of years ago, and he invited me to golf. And I'm not even joking. He goes, yeah, but we'll have to take the helicopter because my mum and sister have taken the jet to New York that weekend. I'm like, okay, I don't think I can afford this golf course.
My spaceship's in the shop, so I mean.
Yeah, right. The shop's in Area 51, so and we can't get there. We don't have the jet. It's a big, it's an issue. It's really hard having that much money. Must be difficult. You know what bothers me? I was thinking about this the other day. Just while we're here.
A lot of things.
Yeah. We are still paused, by the way. This isn't just the Pixie variety.
No. It's paused because we're going to get this out.
Yeah, exactly.
They're waiting for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to get on with it. So if you will, I rewatched The Incredibles, the first one.
You stopped there, and that's what bothered you.
It bothered me. Great. No. At the start, there's like a minor villain, a French dude with a lot of explosives called Bon Voyage. Now I found out that apparently they originally wanted to call him Bon Perignon, after the notable French champagne brand, right? But then they were like discussing it, and they were like, oh, we're going to have to pay money to be allowed to use the name. And then I imagine at some point an executive was like, hey, maybe instead of paying money to make this champagne reference in this kid's film, let's just call him something free that the kids might understand. So we got Bon Voyage.
And also, I think having more people that know about it probably helps as we get back into game. Everyone's getting in there. It's a lot of changes, by the way. Everyone's basically changed onto something else. Mushroom is the only one still maintaining any semblance of an ult charge here. Xavier make their way now through the streets of B.
I believe it was a disconnect on Xavier, so that does account for Rodtung's lack of ultimate charge. Cyclone Coupling have been able to make their own changes as well here.
To be honest, this is probably one of the best scenarios for Cyclone Coupling, where it's basically in neutral again outside of this now incoming Graviton Surge from Mushroom.
It's going to be a pretty brutal one potentially, especially if Recall gets picked off ahead of time. He stays alive, but there's the grab getting thrown right in. A little bit far forward, but they are still able to barrel on forward, and well, all's well that ends well for Rodtung. He's been able to recharge that ultimate.
And now Xavier to walk up forward. A few more coming onliners on THK and Thittercorn fairly close now. Good news is Sleepers kind of keeping up here. You do want to see that Transcendence fairly soon to be able to contest with the EMP, but before that even happens, we do have to talk about the Earthshatter. That is still going to come into effect. Cyclone Coupling need to be ready.
Rodtung, gonna be looking at that. Oh, that's a big ouch. THK not able to get back out. That actually gives some real big breathing room here to Cyclone Coupling. Also allows TOT to potentially even up the
two-man
charge. It's quite far forward though, so by the time Rodtung was there, they've already got back up, and now Rodtung's just in way too deep. That's not the fight that Xavier were wanting. It's a huge cooldown gone as well, and Cyclone Coupling are more than happy to take advantage of this position.
And that was already a 5v6 there because THK goes down to TOT straight away. Afterwards, Cyclone Coupling can push forward. They have 6 members. TOT can get something done here. A nice hack into Rodtung stops the Earthshatter from coming through. It comes through, but like you mentioned, 2 members too far away to catch up to. Xavier try and walk up. Rodtung takes too much damage, has to back out, loses his life anyway. Now it's a 4v6. Cyclone Coupling are charging up ultimates. They don't really have to use them outside of the rally, and now they're sitting in a very comfortable position where they've got 5 ultimates basically online.
They've got all the answers. Xavier just utterly lost their momentum there. Maybe a bit of a miscall, but at any rate, Shatter out now plus EMP. Both ways actually. Fallen's the first casualty, so Xavier have managed to get the better end of that one. That's a lot of ultimates from Cyclone Coupling as well, actually. 3 used so far. They've still got Sound Barrier, still got Grab and EMP, so they should be able to get more out of this still.
Yeah, they have a lot of great uses here. Sound Barrier's going to come down, but the Grab should be able to answer that as well. So MG.
Oh, it's kind of a double layer though. The Sound Barrier gets a little bit of extra value, and in the end, the trade is 1-to-1. Now 2-to-1, favoring Xavier, who themselves have charged up a Grab that Recall, unfortunately, cannot answer adequately. And with that, Xavier, they managed to last out through the fight. Despite the ultimate deficit, they end up getting more effective trades.
And it's about the line of play that you choose to make here, because if Cyclone Coupling drop the Graviton Surge first, it gets answered by the Sound Barrier. The EMP then counts as the Sound Barrier, but if you do it the other way around, then you get the double layering and the Sound Barrier gets double value. So Cyclone Coupling now on the back foot as Xavier pushed through C.
THK nearly has an EMP. Sweep, though, should be able to have a Transcendence in time. That's going to be very important. But again, Xavier in a position they were a little while ago where they're coming up on EMP. There's only 1 defensive ultimate that'll be available. And they also have a Shatter as an extra.
Rally is coming up online. That was the ultimate used a little bit earlier for Cyclone Coupling. Still waiting for the next EMP, but it's going to get used by THK early.
There it is, Transcendence to answer
4.
EMP. The Shatter comes out. That's a nice charge back into the team with MG attached. And with that, Xavier can start pushing forward on what was a 6 versus 5, now a 6 versus 4 and 3. And the numbers will continue to roll down until respawns come in. And Xavier keep advancing the car.
And that's the other combo you have to talk about here is the EMP into Shatter, which should now be available for Fallen and TOT. For Cyclone Coupling's next defense as the car does roll around the final corner, and Xavier could be getting a pretty decent time here.
Very proactive grab. The EMP does slow
Shatter.
Xavier down a touch, but not quite a kill onto Rodtung. That's really critical that he stays alive there. I mean, Xavier just got a better end of that trade. They recognize that they didn't have a defensive ultimate, but actually neither did Cyclone Coupling, so the grab could be used to great effect. Now Cyclone Coupling trying to hold on here. Shatter is out, but the sound barrier was committed beforehand by Taste. They're going to survive that one. Now their only EMP available. They find Fallen again, MG as well. Bello's going to come back in on a Doomfist. EMP only finds Recall, but he's not going to survive because of it. And that's going to be the cart marching to the terminus.
There's so many players so close here. MG's on 91. Recall's on 99 here, TOT on 89, and what you saw towards the end is you have this EMP Shatter combo that gets used by Xavier. Then when it comes down to Cyclone Coupling's own turn to use that same combo, they get the EMP down, but they can't drop the Shatter. Fallen gets taken down so quickly, he might have even been hacked into the middle as well. And for Cyclone Coupling, that was their big plan, that was their big out that would have saved them on the defense, and then once time starts ticking down, they're already in a pretty defendable position, lean on the reinforcement advantage as well. That could have been a defense still for them, but for Xavier, finding the right opportunities, finding the right hacks, getting the right members down, few mishaps in terms of ultimate usages by Cyclone Coupling, that ends up costing them that defense. And for Xavier, push through fairly comfortably, all 3 points.
It's also working with what you've got for Xavier. They only had the grab. Like I said, they didn't have defensive ultimates, but they saw an option. They saw a passage of play that could work out for them, and they committed to it. So I want to see more of that.
Also want to see a lot less of Cyclone Coupling kind of blundering up certain say combos, but also that's...
I might even get my wish granted. I don't
Cyclone
know.
Coupling, especially on that B defense, that the one that really went sideways for them when they had that big ult advantage, that was one they really needed to win and should have won. So for them, you could imagine this map should have been a lot better for them overall if those didn't happen. And now on this offense, see what they want to run so far. It could be the Pharah. It has been pretty popular on the attack, especially if Xavier actually do opt for a Rhine defense. Cyclone Company are not going to be able to scout it early. They're going to have to do a little bit of walking around to see what the defense is first. But once that's confirmed, I do believe Pharah will be on the menu.
Lee Chang soon. Should be able to check this one out. Should know fairly quickly and decide to make some changes here.
They might not go for it. What will they change to here? Will they try and match with 3-2-1? We saw TOT kind of go back to base here. Now just spamming from base itself.
Yeah, they actually decide they do want to stick with this one. I do agree with it as well.
Xavier already in a position where, okay, you do have Fallen quite far up, so got to try and run up to him if you can.
THK going for the manual hack actually left him vulnerable around the side. It's not like hacking Sleep was even going to accomplish anything for the team. A little bit of an unfortunate one. Bello gets caught in. That's a fish.
It's the hook play into the concussive blast that keeps everyone else away, and now going fishing again. There's already a lot of kills going the way of Cyclone Coupling. Picking up 2 ticks, and for Xavier, I think they've given this one up already.
Yeah, they know they can't push back onto this. They're still kind of waiting for THK to be back into a useful position. They've had to pull back here. They will be able to take an early-ish fight, though, on the street space.
That is the danger of running a Rhine start if there is going to be a Pharah player on the other side. Lee Cheng Soon now holding high ground. Dragon Strike nearly available. No hook this time around. Xavier have opportunity to push in.
They're going to go for it. Crowd controllers down for just a moment. They at least reposition. They need to be careful here, though, because they are still vulnerable to spam damage. Tay's trying to get some displacement on the high ground, but he ends up eating some chunks. And Rod Sung with the nano boost pushes forward. He will at least find Fallen, so it's worked out for them, but otherwise that would have risked an overextension.
But honestly, that's probably all they get here, and they're lucky to even get Fallen as the Dragon Strike comes through. Fallen comes back into the mix. Xavier could be in trouble if they don't get out.
There's no real ground gained in the end. It's just ultimates expended on either side, and Cyclone Coupling are happy to do that because eventually, if they keep the pressure up, Xavier will start to crumble. As a Shatter out, though, they need to be able to follow up on it. Supercharger is down. Rocket Barrage to stop anyone from following up is going to pay off nicely, and it stops Xavier from getting into the other ultimates like the Crab, like the EMP that they had otherwise charged up. And like I said, Cyclone Coupling did not mind Xavier continuing to play that position because they had the right comp to break it.
And it was just slightly out of the way that he dodges the sleep dart initially to stop himself from, I guess, having his rocket barrage cancelled. This one's going to be an exit sleep dart instead. Of course, just wants to save his own life, and for good reason, because Xavier wants to regroup quickly here. They have an EMP, they have a grab, they have tools where they can finally stop this push, and there isn't going to be much support response. No Valkyrie. Even if you had Valkyrie, that's not ideal either. So Xavier have a good shot at defending B.
That's a tasty EMP, but they need to be able to follow up on it. CHK got brought low, and Didical's already dead, so a couple of members caught up in this grab. Can they finish them off? They get recall at least, but they would have liked to have got both. This has been very low value from Xavier for all the ultimates they've committed in this fight. Meanwhile, Cyclone Coupling, who will probably be swapping off some of these picks anyway, are happy to just toss everything they've got into the mix, confirm these kills, and cap point B.
You can see the way they space around the EMP grab as well, where they have a few members off to one side, a few members on the ground as well. So once the EMP dumps come through, catches 4 people, the grab decision is then difficult for Mushroom. Do you go for the pharmacy on the high ground? Do you go for the tanks on the low ground? Because no matter who you go for, you're not catching everyone. You're catching a few, and you only barely got Recall down, who's now alive again. And Cyclone Company, they're snowballing. They don't have to swap just yet, and they're going to see how much they can get done with these ults.
Keeping COT on the Pharaoh despite not having a rocket barrage is just because no one can answer him. He's still been getting value. However, Xavier have found a way to get some value of their own. They do end up committing both support ultimates. One onto Rod Tongue so he can get the kills, the other out from Tay so that they are secure in the fight. But they will crucially stop Cyclone Coupling.
Xavier needed to find a position where they can finally run forward and find a fight, because so far Cyclone Coupling have been abusing a lot of different positioning on high ground as well, splitting around so that Xavier can't effectively push in, a lot of spam damage that they've just been kind of getting ripped apart by, and now that the barrage is available,
Rod Tongue
will happen.
He eats big damage, decides he's just going to go forward, try and make a shatter happen.
How's that for big damage?
Yeah, the shatter did connect, he couldn't follow up on it, and honestly, Cyclone Coupling getting value out of that Pharah for 3 there. The conk forward on Rod Tongue plus the spam damage, and he's just in this impossible scenario.
We are getting to the point now where if this push doesn't work, they probably will have to change, because you're still pushing with a Vrissa on a mobile objective, and once you lose this kind of positioning, then it gets hard. However, Xavier don't have a lot to work with.
They got to wait out this Dragon Strike before they can all regroup around this fight. Rod Tongue's already down with that whole hog being committed, and finally a trade coming through, but Denicorn down. Self-destruct keeps them off this payload for some critical seconds as well. They've got better respawns here, but unless they get picks, that's not going to count for anything. And Cyclone Coupling just getting free value out of picks that should have long since ground to a halt. Instead, they're going to cap, likely with at least more than a minute than what Xavier do here. Xavier just desperately trying to stall up with that Wrecking Ball, but there it is. Over a minute more for Cyclone Coupling than what Xavier have in the bank.
And that was a super high value supercharger as well. 5 members boosted up in terms of damage. The only one that couldn't receive it was, unfortunately, I believe it might have been Dimwit that got booped off the edge of the map while he was using the whole hog. Sleep, sorry. Yeah. Sleep was the one that happened to. For Cyclone Coupling, I mean, that was an entire snowball all the way through the entire map. There were a few moments where it kind of slowed down. Xavier did want to fight at the start of C, but didn't really lead to anything, didn't get an advantage from that. Cyclone Company weren't forced to change their comp, and this is the point of the map where you do need to start forcing that. You want to be able to reset Cyclone Company. If they were forced to change comps, that would have been a reset in ultimates. A lot of momentum gets lost, and then suddenly Xavier can shave a good 2 minutes maybe off the clock. That could have made a huge difference, because then if Cyclone Coupling cap, they get a much less time in that time bank than Xavier have. Right now, it is going to be Cyclone Coupling ahead by a minute, a little bit more.
It just feels like something went unpunished there for Cyclone Coupling. Certainly you'd expect that there are other teams that would not have allowed that composition to continue getting value. It's also reasonably good execution out from Cyclone Coupling as well. So it is, you know, it's 2 halves. It's not all just Xavier's shortcomings necessarily.
You're going to see the opposite now, because Cyclone Company want to start with a Ryan as well. This is going to be a standard 3-3 with Sleep on the Ana. Xavier, so far looking like they'll just want to match this one. They can choose to go back to spawn and play fire themselves, but in this mirror, it can turn into a coin flip as well.
Xavier may just not mind the mirror necessarily. They have generally done well, at least when they're close to mirrors. We haven't seen many mirrors. I don't think we've actually seen an exact mirror yet this series, but we've had sort of more GOATS-esque compositions.
It's just not a positive win rate necessarily, unless you're that much better than your opponents. It is going to be as close to a 50-50 as you can hope for. Thirtycorn is on the zenith of the Ana and falling, taking a lot of damage early, but doesn't go down.
Yeah, Recall able to get the isolation there onto Rod Tongue, and I mean, that's the risk of taking that extra step forward as the Reinhardt. If you haven't kept tabs on the Lucio, if he's got behind you, he can push you forward into his team, keep you vulnerable. THK got demeched as well. That's a huge slowdown.
And that's going to be a stagger where he might wait for the remake here because he's close, but he might also die, which would be pretty awful. Xavier now have only got 50 seconds remaining to try and get something done onto A, and well, time back's going to be important here because Cyclone Coupling have a lot more time to work with.
Gets back in the mech, but not by much. MG still leads an ult charge anyway. Nano boost available for Sleep, and there's no real defensive options for Xavier. Rod Tongue's already dead. Fallen just getting maximum value here. At least nobody else dies for Xavier, but it's again, it's time wasted. THK has to reset the slow way this time.
And he's going to try and force himself to die. But they don't have to shoot him. They don't have to kill him. They do now, but this is a point where you got about 17 seconds. THK still has to respawn. You have ultimates for Xavier, so it's not all bad, but you now have to both contest a point, force the overtime, and still have a pretty good fight with these ultimates.
And that's to say nothing of the grab, just stopping you from getting on the point. Tay reads it, he knows it's coming, so he dives to the point to try force overtime, eats a Brigida stun. Now he's got to get back to the team where the Transcendence is happening. He's barely stayed alive at the point, then of course dove to try...
Rodtung's out of position.
But now so many of these members are split way far forward on the point itself. Rodtung's barely getting healed up here. It's not going to last forever though. Ballin did at least go down a little bit earlier, so it's currently 2 for 2 either side of the fence. Self-destruct up from THK. Retains the mech for now. They do have the closer respawn, and they are in a much better position. They've started to group up just a bit more, but man, they need Rodtung. That's a huge biotic grenade. THK demeched again. Bellows going to get finished off. They're not on the point. And that's going to be it. Xavier will not even get a third.
And that was so close. I mean, you see the sound barrier come through. You're thinking this could go quite well now. They have the longevity sound on top of the point. Overtime's kicked in, which means here the respawn's going to be quite long for both sides. However, you at least have a shorter distance to get onto the point. So Cyclone Coupling's starting to run out of members here. You can start to see they don't quite have the ability to stay on. This is where it starts to look okay. Rodtung is now respawning. He's going to get back. He can charge in. This Bionade is the only thing that really throws things into the wind. You have a DMAC onto THK, not the end of the world. If you lose Bello, not the end of the world, but then suddenly the grab pulls everyone off the point. Rodtung, you can see on your left, is finally there, but the game is already over.
And just really rough on the whole. You feel Xavier just... Again, we're back into the position where they seem to take too much spam damage. They get picked off in rotations, and now on the defense, they're already looking like sitting ducks.
And this is why it feels like taking the 3-3 mirror was just going to be too much of a coin flip, where I don't know if you can afford to go for too much of a 50-50. You want to go for a matchup that can give you a much better win percentage, which is what Cyclone Coupling are likely to do here, especially once they see that Xavier are running still a Ryan defense. And while Cyclone Coupling don't have to worry about how their fire comp transitions through to B and C, which, to be honest, last time it worked anyway, but this time they can just run it on A, just cap that 1/3 on A, and then take this map and take that match point.
The thing with this team comp as well is it doesn't even need to get kills necessarily. It can just spam members out, force them into defensive positions, and your Orisa takes the space on the points. You're already seeing that happening to Rodtung. Tay's
a kill
already, and this is exactly what this team comp is meant to do. It's just about pressuring the positioning, and already Xavier are having to dive to the point to keep it contested at a numbers deficit as well. A numbers deficit that is only likely to grow here as Rodtung
This is where the dam bursts open, because you lose your main tank. Now THK will get DMAC pretty soon too.
Yeah, that one goes. The stun on Mushroom, even if they're not dying, they're low. They won't last long enough on this point to get the counter trades necessary. They've only barely DMAC MG and killed Lee Chang-soon. And even then, Cyclone Coupling have far more gas in the tank.
You saw the cracks. You saw the cracks already in that bridge, and as soon as the keystone falls out, that's going to be it. I mean, it's just not going to be much of a defense remaining. I think the only chance that Xavier had there on that A-point defense would have been to go for at least some sort of either hit scan or sniper comp where, you know, you've seen... Let's use Talon, for example, maybe a Puda running the Ashe there, that's an option.
Yeah.
You can maybe try and run a Widowmaker there. That at least was used by Lee Chang-soon on his own defense on that A-point for Cyclone Coupling. So you got to do something to prevent the fire from coming in. Beyond that, you just can't run the Ryan. Maybe you have to run a Winston here, but whatever it is, you have to play for the best possible win rate on that A-point defense, knowing that you have to full hold on A the entire 1/3 for the entire 3 minutes, where the best result is a draw, but you'll go for the draw right now because that is still maybe slightly better for you. In a way, it's not, because it would have been Cyclone Coupling on match point, no matter what. But a draw would also mean you're kind of on match point as well, whereas at least now it's only Cyclone Coupling on match point and not you.
Xavier, it means they have to pull off a miniature kind of reverse sweep here. They have to win the next two, otherwise they go straight into relegations. We talk about, you know, this team's sort of running hot and cold this season, and after Busan, they looked like they were maybe looking good, but it didn't quite feel comfortable just yet, and now it turns out they're not having one of their hotter days. In fact, they've almost run hot and cold over the course of just even this series. They've had some moments of brilliance, had some excellent fights, great execution, maximum value, and then they've also had times where compositionally they just seem utterly lost, like they're making all the wrong decisions. And we're seeing both sides of the coin. They're constantly just flipping it and flipping it. And I mean, do you really want to gamble your future in the region like that?
I think now Busan is the microcosm because even on that map, you could see the individual rounds went 2-0. I still think, look, that the downtown where they had to basically come back from the 99% deficit, realistically, if Cyclone Company didn't make a few mistakes, that could have been their round. We go to Sanctuary, maybe they then win. This could have been already a 3-0. This could have just been Cyclone Company coming in as the better team, better prepped on the day, better execution on the day, and they win. But Busan, whether that be they got unlucky or they misplayed, probably that they misplayed, they couldn't quite take the map, and now we're going into a map 4. But you know, there could just be a case where I think Busan ends up being the only map win for Xavier, and even then you could have argued that small things changing, realistically, Cyclone Company were ahead and probably should have taken that one too.
And it's starting to look a little bit dire now for Xavier, just because they are the ones down in the series. Like we said, they have to win 2 in a row. That includes, unfortunately, Escort. And I say unfortunately because you look at how the Streets phase of Kings Row went, they struggled to muster any kind of defense.
I'm sure you have no clue what Escort is, so let's go ahead and find out what it is.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Map of the week is Dorado for Escort, and in some ways you're going to see much of the same. I mean, we can kind of go back to Volskaya for a lot of how that 8-point defense works, at least compositionally. Riss is probably going to come back. Widowmaker's probably going to come back, and especially if we're going to talk about Widowmaker, you have to talk about Lee Chang-soon because he's been the guy on Cyclone Coupling making it work. And when you look at Xavier, hasn't really worked. You haven't had the same impact. You haven't had the same kind of members, which is why once we go into a at least somewhat Widowmaker dominated map, which I would say Dorado for both points A and B is that, they're going to have to play probably THK back on the Genji. They're probably going to have to play Dive here. That's really the only real answer to dealing with the Widow. And on top of that, TOT can go on the Fire again. You can play Widow Fire, which is still a pretty good comp.
And that's the other thing I was going to mention was that Fire. On the whole, Dorado is just a map where basically every single thing that has worked well for Cyclone Coupling is possible and even an ideal option in a lot of regards. Whereas for Xavier, what they've predominantly been running is that 3-3. It's not as effective here, especially against those picks, and they're not as comfortable on those picks themselves. You already look at this and go, this is not their ideal map. This is not their ideal situation. You feel like if they were going to be able to win that sort of matchup, it would have at least happened on Kings Row. But if that wasn't possible, then I don't really think it's possible here.
And we look at result-wise as well. We've been to Time Bank multiple times now across both the previous 2 maps. However, on Dorado, I don't think we're finishing the map here at all. This, to me, unless it is going to be Cyclone Coupling attacking first and they really make a point to finish the map. But if it's going to be Cyclone Coupling defending first, I honestly think it's going to be, at minimum, a B-point defense. Not going to see C at all.
I could see that.
And that could just be the game over. That could just be then, okay, they defend on B. That's if A even gets cleared. And then suddenly we swap sides and Cyclone Coupling clear both A and B because they have a Widowmaker play and they win.
Now, look, I'd love to be proven wrong here, right? I'd love for Xavier to pull something out that just works really effectively, even just something that they've been playing so far. I'd like to see that, I don't know, just go off to more effects. Even if they're playing some kind of dive comp, maybe that works. I mean, I don't know, right? Like, it's not necessarily favored, but maybe they just start looking really good. Maybe they get back on a bit of a hot streak, but like, here's the thing. I feel like we're looking at this and relying on Xavier to sort of overperform on a composition because they are compositionally limited.
And I'll be honest, proving you wrong is a part-time hobby of mine, but in this case, I just agree. That's exactly the position we're in right now. Xavier have got a lot of work to do, and Cyclone Coupling, this realistically will be the 3-1 that closes out the series. I think if we go to Ilios, then it could go either way, because then we're back in the territory of Busan, where suddenly Xavier could really start to kick into gear there, and, you know, we're not just seeing a pure Widowmaker map anymore, and suddenly Xavier, you know, maybe we're back on 3-3, maybe Genji's pretty good there instead, and THK really gets into his groove. That's anybody's map. That's Xavier's win condition. But on Dorado, it's looking like Cyclone Coupling. Want to know what a full-time hobby of mine is? Overwatch. I'll just tell you anyway. Okay, Overwatch.
Right. I was gonna say, like, if you get paid to do this, right? Is it really still a hobby? Just a hobby that's got way out of hand.
A paid hobby. That's a thing.
It's ideal, isn't it?
Wait, you guys get paid?
I knew a dude who started a winery in his retirement just as a hobby, and it ended up becoming like extremely successful. He passed it on to his son. It's like, that's a hobby that gets out of hand.
Forcing your hobby on your children. Something I like to do.
Son, you've got to maintain the family.
No, you must enjoy this.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy watching Faraz and TRT's back on, while Lee Chang-soon considered the Widowmaker, decided, you know what, let's break some shields, and what better here to do that with than Hanzo.
And Xavier is sort of back on the same sitting duck composition.
Ducks in a barrel almost.
That's a really brutal image, but sure. I feel less bad when I'm shooting fish than ducks in a barrel. I don't know. Usually you shoot ducks in the air and fish in a barrel. Imagine swapping those over. Anyway, back to Overwatch.
Get my barrel of ducks lined up. That's really what I'm trying to say right now.
Get all my barrels in a row. As Cyclone Coupling are just kind of continuing to barrel forward into Xavier, who themselves are trying to barrel into Cyclone Coupling and have found some success, but you feel like eventually that's going to start running short as they
barrage available
and more spam damage. The barrage from yonder. The sleep does come through, but honestly the damage has been done in terms of damage dealt. It allows Cyclone Coupling to continue cleaning up members.
But at the same time, we didn't kill anyone off that barrage, so there's opportunity for Xavier to get counter trades here, which exactly happens. TOT being one of the main members you got to kill is gone. Xavier, hold.
It feels a little strange.
Oh, this barrel was empty.
Like shooting a fish that's flying, but I mean, what do you do now?
Get my fish in a row.
Get all my.
So the problem I had there was it was too much of a long-range rocket barrage with not enough of those mini rockets actually connected onto kills, and
Justice reigns from quite a way above.
Too far away.
Mushroom commits himself a grab, but it's not the hardest. They can't really follow up on it. He's low. Rodson gets finished off to the whole hog, and this feels like how the last fight should have gone. THK now going to get Z-Max, Cyclone Coupling. I mean, they don't even necessarily need the ultimates. They actually just have a solid composition to sort of take this possession out. Mushroom with the nano boost can't really get anything done, is eventually going to get drilled down. Sound Barrier keeps him alive for a bit longer, but it feels like it's all a matter of time, right? Finally, Mushroom will go down. Cyclone Coupling have continued to get picks that have gone untraded, and the cart's now continuing to move forward.
And we still have a supercharger available. It's an exit kill, or exit death from Xavier, rather. Two, in fact, double supports. Means they absolutely cannot contest. In fact, they're going to lose more members as we push through onto that B point. Maybe someone disconnected here again. Either way, it's not going too swimmingly so far for Xavier. It's because fish need to be in water, and these fish are in a row out of water.
Yeah. It's just not, they're not where fish should be.
Whereas ducks don't need to swim, they can just float on top. And they're still okay.
Exactly. Ducks are just the more versatile creature. They can also swim quite effectively to catch fish.
And when ducks are in a barrel, they can just kind of be on top, assuming there's water in there.
I mean, they can also just like get out. They can just like flat and they're gone.
But the problem is that you can only fit like maybe 3 of them if we're talking like a small barrel and like full-size ducks. Whereas fish, like depending on the depth of water, you can fit quite a bit more in there. So I don't know about the maybe crowding issues, but
Just overcrowded duck barrel.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, man.
Really, really discussing the real issues here.
Yes.
I knew someone whose his last name was Mallard, and his first name was Richard. And I mean,
I see
people
where
may,
this is going.
yes. Like I don't want to say the transitional word here, but a name that is notably short for Richard, like his parents would call him that.
Oh no, they can.
Oh, no, that's just louder. His parents called him that, which meant that his friends started calling him Duck. It was just Duck Mallard. Just, I mean, you can't. It's too good, right? You're not going to pass that opportunity up, right? Like, and I bet his parents, it didn't even occur to them. They're just like, I quite like the name Richard. Like, never mind that our surname is a male duck. Here we go.
Trying to find other ridiculous names that are. They're not like too weird. Like you. It's not like you. It's not like you call your child Apple, but like. They're like. It's like something where. You're thinking maybe your parents just overlooked it. Like they just didn't think of it at the time. And like down the line, it's a lot more ridiculous. It's not like on purpose ridiculous, right?
I do know one, and it's a Dutch name, and it's probably like the way it actually worked out was it's maybe even a bit too rude to say on broadcast. Okay, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna commit here. Her real name. This is a Dutch name. Is Manon. It's spelled Manon.
Oh, Manon what?
Her last name
Manon
was Blackman.
As we unpause back into this game, Tay or somebody reconnected here. Mushroom, maybe it was, who's changing heroes anyway.
Was Mushroom.
Long stagger onto THK.
You get disconnected from life.
A lot of ultimates, okay?
In the game.
A lot of ultimates being available on the side of Cyclone Coupling. And we talked about not going to time bank. I still don't think we're going to a time bank, but I do now maybe believe Cyclone Coupling can at least finish the map. Xavier, however, not too sure if they can do the same on their own attack later. Can't count them out too early.
Yep.
There is a world with Xavier deep in here.
I know, I don't ever know what to expect, right? Like, they've at least made, in my opinion, a reasonable compositional change. Wow, that was a very dramatic conk there. Self-destruct was sort of yeeted sky high. Tasery dead to the Storm Arrow. THK gonna meet him in that fate, and suddenly it's already fallen apart, hasn't it, for Xavier? Getting buffeted about. They cannot get anything done here. This is a bronze level 1v1 right now. Just two Hanzos duking out.
Actually, to be honest, whether it was intentional or not, just kind of staggering out that kill even helps. If you kill them too quickly, they just kind of respawn together. So, I don't know, in a way, the best way you want to take down the enemy team is slowly one by one where they don't kill you. And now you get this B cap for free. B has been completely free. Usually it takes a while to get there.
Thank you, I'll be here all week.
I hope not.
And I mean, they're going to continue that through, right? Now finding Citycorn.
It's 4 out of 6 ultimates still available from B.
They didn't have to use really any of them. I think the Supercharger might have gone down, and that was it. Maybe it was whole hog. Something got used, but...
This is, by the way, not where I expected a Pharmacy versus Pharmacy to be seen. This is usually where teams will just agree to go 3-3, Goats v Goats mirror, but
they're like, yeah, you know what? The Pyramid's got a big skybox.
Changing of the times.
Lee Chang soon does go down. That's a really important pick. It does slow things down a touch, but it's only a touch. They actually still need to get more value, but they've started to find it now with TOT and Fallen. The res on Lee Chang soon is helpful in getting him back into the fight, but they actually get THK here. No, he is ultimately going to go down, and that's going to be Cyclone Coupling force back. Also critical for Xavier to charge up some ultimate.
And this is now weird for Cyclone Coupling because ideally they like to change comp here. However, they're holding onto so many ultimates that really you can get a lot done here as well with said ultimates, so you don't really want to give away too much. Xavier have also got ults now finally, as mentioned, so both teams, assuming we're staying on these comps, it's going to get pretty messy out there. Might get res.
It's a nice early headshot. Even if it gets rezzed, it's a cooldown gone and it's time off the table. And actually looks like they don't even want to res it. THK kind of playing point guard over that dead body.
So assuming we are going to stay, and it does look like Cyclone Coupling is staying here, we're going to play this one out. It's going to take about a minute.
Yep.
And then you're going to have maybe a 3-3 comp that needs a couple minutes to really ramp up. So the possibility of capping out still exists, but it is narrowly closing that window.
That is a massive hook onto Tay. Can't res yourself. It's double Dragon Strike as well. Puts Xavier back. Now the Rocket Barrage layered on top of them. It's brilliant. The sleep is a bit too late, and that is so great for Cyclone Coupling. Just everything lined up perfectly. All those fish. And that's going to be I mean, they're looking to close this one out, right? They're just wanting to spawn camp here. They've got the spam damage still. Pick these members off as they come out. Stop them from even getting to the point here. Rodtongue might just get there. Don't know how long he's going to last for. Bello's not going to make it out. Whole Hog keeps members at bay, even as
both teams
tries
Hog
to channel his own. He's not able to get onto the point, not able to out damage Sleep there, and the cap gets completed.
And that is ahead of time in some ways when you consider what comps are being run, but I mean, you have the defense basically mirroring you in a sense, but you know, you did kind of expect, okay, this next push is a bit of a coin flip for Cyclone Company. Maybe it doesn't go well, then they have to swap onto goats, and then it takes them the entire 3 minutes, and then we're in overtime, and we don't know if they're going to cap. Now they actually do cap. Now that we have at least a time for the time bank available for Cyclone Coupling, Xavier are already in a pretty tough spot. We already didn't really think they were going to be the finish this map. Now they have to. Now they don't have a choice. This could be the 3-1 with a 1-3 score that sends them out of the tournament for the season.
It's just so brutal. And it all started with that hook onto Tay. Like, that's Tay in the air as well. That's a max value hook. That is not one that you are necessarily expecting to connect. You just kind of chuck it out and hope, and, well, I guess that got rewarded in some capacity. Xavier, considering a presidential arraignment.
When you say it all starts to Tay, I kind of think, you know, the screen pauses, it goes to black and white, and that song plays, and Tay says, "That's me over there." You're probably wondering how I got here.
The hook on him, like, see the record scratch? You ever see that picture? It was of Usain Bolt, like mid-sprint, and he's looking perfectly at the camera, like he'd posed for it, and it feels very much like a freeze frame where he's like, "You're probably wondering how I got here." Like, well,
very quickly, I think.
Yeah, we all know exactly how you got there, Usain Bolt. You're an exceptionally fast man. What a great name, by the way, for someone who's very quick. That's why Lance Armstrong is such a disappointment. Sports all leg-based. Anyway. Lance Legstrong doesn't really... Actually, no, that does work. That works better. I prefer that name. Anyway, Xavier, the Bastion so far. Oh, that's a nice hook onto Rodtongue.
Sometimes you got to take a punt. We'll see if this one really works out for them. They're about to... That's a lot of HP bars getting low.
These holds have been so devastating. Thittercorn ends up going down. THK has at least found a counter trade, but the only thing keeping them in that for the most part was that Immortality field. Now THK's been able to reposition.
It's free fire.
Slipping under the radar for the most important few seconds of this push. And they're allowed to get back onto the cart now, having not lost any of the critical components.
And I'll be honest, as soon as you saw the cart get under the archway, that's the hardest part they've already surpassed. Cyclone Coupling, they have a barrage now, but who are you putting it on when most of the members have already escaped through? And off of one push, the fact that THK lives, they're going to get A. So now we go on to B. If this is still successful, they have enough time for B. For C, rather. I think this can now go to a time bank, and it's predicated off the fact that so far it's looking like a pretty successful push.
Cyclone Coupling, still got the spam, still got the bunker. It's going to be a nano boost onto the tank form. It's found TOT, he's firing the shots into the sky. It's probably going to be a res out of recall that is indeed going to go through, and he was throwing the shots up that direction to try and get that kill as well, but unfortunately it doesn't work out, and now they're actually getting stopped up. Okay. They can't contest TOT very easily. They're trying to reposition THK.
Contest himself.
Yeah, he'll do the work for you. Now they've gone ahead and put a supercharger down, and this is actually now starting to work out, partially because TOT was in a perfect position, could have got so much value, and ended up not quick fingers there for THK to get out of the path of the Dragon Strike, and they may still be able to get this back underway.
So this is where now Xavier still have pretty close respawns. Fallen's done a great job, by the way, of just holding the ground. Second tank form coming in. I'm not too sure we need to see this one now. I have a few things to say about how the tank forms have been used so far. First of all, THK's first one, trying to get recall out of the air when he had perfectly good ground targets. That could have been their push over. If it wasn't for the fact that TOT suicides on a rocket barrage, Xavier might have just lost that push right there.
They've actually swapped because they want to get the Sombra in. TOT is the one who plays the Sombra, but they also want the Pharaoh. So this is a really awkward change up now. Amplification Matrix is going to go down. THK happy to sit pretty behind that with the Blizzard out. He is free firing. You talk about fish in a barrel, ducks in a row, or whatever combination thereof. He is getting all of them.
Animal and a thing is really what we're talking about here. Cyclone Coupling
on a boat.
Cyclone Coupling still just unable to do too much here. TOT at least has an EMP, and you start to think, okay, this has to slow down somewhere. This has to end probably on C. but I think the damage has been done in terms of time on the board. We have 5 minutes available. Even when we're forced to swap off the pirate ship, Xavier can go on through a 3-3. They can still push over. The full map cap is now that much more possible.
Their ideal situation here is to get this far enough forward that even after the pirate ship sort of gets dislodged, they can still find kills. THK pops tank mode before the EMP comes through, but he's anti-nated as well and ends up finished off before he can even find value. So this is not the fight that Xavier were really wanting. They've got a nice double freeze, though, on those tanks. Might just be able to start dishing this one back. MG goes down. Mushroom maybe slept, but he's going to be just fine. And Sunny at Cyclone Coupling, who have overcommitted, they go, well, we got THK. That means we can win the fight, right? It was a 6v5, but they didn't account for the fact that there's still the Mei, there's still the spam damage.
There's no more Bastion available. THK comes back on a Tracer, and this is partially why you should probably hold the tank form, because now if you are re-pushing as a Bastion, you can tank form forward. Tracer's just not going to be nearly as effective here. This is where it may collapse, and it's pending on how Xavier execute with the kind of comp they still have available.
I'm just hoping we can see Bello maybe get himself a Blizzard here. The Immortality Field keeps everyone alive long enough. They can heal back up. That's huge. They find Sleep, but it's traded with THK. Try to freeze up Fallen. It does work. The Blizzard, I think, gets cancelled there in Cyclone Coupling. They will be able to stop this one short by the looks of things. This is where we have to see what Xavier want to do to swap. THK's already gone over onto a Reaper.
And let's push over. I'm going to go back. I really think if you saved the tank form, reused it in this sort of scenario, it would have been much better for you. Just not even having the Bastion, but keeping the rest of the pirate ship there is like, you're no longer sailing a ship with any guns on it. Now you're just playing, you're just a merchant boat now. It's not really doing too much. You might as well be rowing it yourself with a couple paddles on the side. Cyclone Coupling, 3 minutes of defense this one. EMP available, fresh comp for Xavier. We talked about them going back onto a Goats. Sombra Goats now 3-2-1. The Nano's available. You can use that to kind of speed up Rod Tongue a bit, but Cyclone Coupling, I'm expecting to shave off at least another 2 minutes.
Oh, that's a brutal self-destruct placement. They're able to just barely skirt out from it. They've managed to take Fallen with them. That's TOT low. They will lose Bello in the mix here. TOT will probably be able to pull back, get some health back in the tank, but Xavier have come out the better end of this fight so far, and they're continuing to do so. Got the wraparound on MG now.
Well, still got positioning there because Cyclone Coupling, Cyclone Coupling threw in the EMP. Xavier were already in the hallway. They backed out. They lived. They punished Fallen, and then actually Cyclone Coupling in trouble. They need to drop the Shadow. It has to land.
Nope, goes straight into Rod Tongue's shield. Now it's Rod Tongue's turn to maybe get some value. Bellows come back on the Doom Fist just as a last hurrah. Already finds Recall, nicely done. Looking to find some other kind of value now. The Earth Shatter from Rod Tongue, unfortunately not too effective, but he's got Ultimate Charge already back in the tank. Fallen's down as well. Good sleep onto Bello.
This is looking like a cap now.
It probably is, even with that sleep. He's going to try and get the finish off himself, but Bello's actually going to be able to find sleep instead. Cyclone Coupling continuing to get picked off. The grab off to the side as well to stop the other respawners from coming in. That is going to be the full cap out.
And that went
me surprised.
Awfully for Cyclone Coupling. Let's be very clear about something. Cyclone Coupling played that about as poorly as you could realistically play that, because they had everything after they had stopped the pirate ship.
Tell us how you really feel, AVRL.
After they stopped the pirate ship, they should have won. They had the EMP, they had waves, they had more ultimates, they had more things that they could do. A fresh comp from Xavier. If this is where you lose, you completely whiff everything. And that wasn't even forward because they connected the EMP. They just chose the wrong positioning for it entirely, where they couldn't follow up. Fallen then missed the shadow. Everything missed. Everything completely went wide. And so in a position where you're Cyclone Coupling, and this is realistically where you're meant to win. Like I mentioned, 2 minutes off the clock here would have been expected. There's 150 remaining. That 150 should be a 0, even if Xavier cap. I don't think I'm out of line by saying that, Cyclone Coupling probably should have been able to hold there, or at least push it to time bank, but completely just messed up that whole defense. And I mean, it honestly makes, I'm going to say it makes me look kind of silly because I said they should have done better, but if they're just not going to play the game, then... You know, I'm not wrong by saying they should have done better there. They just completely missed it.
I mean, even on the A and B parts, especially A, they had Xavier on the rocks for so long, but they never actually confirmed the kills, and they just sort of let the pirate ship get value. They need to not make that same mistake twice, because Xavier are going to run that pirate ship again.
At least they get a good start this time.
That is better.
Just got to put it out there, you know. Can't do too much when you predict certain things to happen, but Cyclone Coupling play with their screens off. Hopefully they turn their monitors back on for this one, because...
This is better.
I mean, we got a 130 push for Xavier. It is still going to be the Bastion start for them, and this opening section is where you got to get the cart forward.
They have to use so many resources just to get him back on the payload. They have at least managed to accomplish that much now. They need to get the shields in front of him. Starting to get to the bridge now. This is that break-even point. If they can get past here, they can really start to make it happen.
They're still going to get past TOT, though. Remember last time TOT suicided himself?
That is a massive, massive hook. And that alone probably means Xavier have to make some kind of swap. They don't have good ways to reapproach that cart, not with TOT uncontested.
And they also don't have tank form either, so they can't exactly push forward with the Bastion. So everything looks kind of difficult now. THK going over the Genji, then the Pharah. Xavier know they're in trouble. They know they need a new comp.
He's still deciding to actually end up settling on a McCree. They put the amplification matrix down, but they would have liked THK to be in that line of fire as that went down. It's also not the greatest sight line anyway. Cyclone coupling can largely just avoid this one. Nice hook forward onto Rod Tongue. May not be making it back alive. Will not be making it back alive. And this keeps happening. Someone gets crowd control. Someone gets picked off. And Xavier, they keep getting fooled by it.
Xavier now, 20 seconds remaining. 2 ultimates in there. You want to see Bello actually land the Blizzard this time around as well. But the barrage is available. TOT even gets a couple of picks. Tay's got to go on the Mercy smart because you want to res somebody. This is realistically the only chance for Cyclone Coupling have so many ways to win here.
They're going to go for the dogfight rather than relying on the McCree to make it work. Bellows looking for something around the side. They need to make sure they're on the cart. That is ridiculous.
Everyone's alive right now.
Literally everyone. They were going
all
for the
12
cart.
members are alive.
I think you mean all 9 members. You can see them around the cart.
If there was a reference there, I didn't get it.
No, there was no reference. I'm just bad at math. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But that was ridiculous. I have to say, it's absolutely ridiculous. You've even got mobile members here, right? Like, maybe we'll be able to get another angle on it. You see the dogfight off to the side. You know, Bellows sneaking around the other side. And then just sitting back behind the shield. They just literally haven't.
You can sit closer to the cart and still be behind the shield. I don't know.
Xavier are like, you know what?
Look,
we didn't really like playing.
I'm gonna be honest
Contenders.
with you. They saw how poorly Cyclone Coupling did on that C defense, and they wanted to one-up it, like on this AD offense.
Hold my foe. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's a Thai word, and I don't speak Thai. I don't even wear a tie.
Had to check as well, I can confirm that. Just want to be sure.
I tell you what, they'll wish this could go to a tie. No, they'll wish they could win it. They made this about as hard
I think
for themselves
if you
as
got this
possible.
card more forward past the fountain, it's still technically winnable, but
It's doable.
At the archway, your defense literally has to be perfect right out the gate, even on the opening roofs, because
One death, right? One death would just lose it here for Xavier, and it would lose it in the worst way.
if there's one, okay, now you got a dog pile. If there's one death that you don't trade this, or you don't get the res, you do get the res. Okay, now it's 66 again. After this res happens, if there's one death, you now have to trade straight away, or you're probably losing.
But Tay is still in rescue mode. They've still got no way of contesting Lee Chang soon. Bellows taken so much pain. It keeps Tay occupied, and that means they lay damage on the ground. Tay has constantly got split focus, having to do the job of 2 healers. Now THK goes down. Can you res that? They've at least found a trade. It's a significant one as well. We'll remove the barrier from the mix, but look at how low these tanks are. Rod Tongue barely alive, and like I said, Tay, the sole healer. Mushrooms nearly down. Rod Tongue goes down. Thinicorn goes down. It's all on Tay. Commits the res onto one of them. Close to respawns here for Cyclone Coupling. Still no contest against TOT. Finally, a rocket will land on top of them, and it feels like it's only a matter of time before Xavier are knocked out of Contenders altogether.
THK is sniping. Oh, okay. I see how this is. I see what's going on here.
They went, you know what?
TOT.
I didn't really like
THK is sniping for the next season. He is sniping out what 2020 looks like right now, because that is what Xavier have got their eyes set on next season. Unfortunately, now they have been officially eliminated from this current season.
And it's a shame.
1 to 3.
You have to see 2 teams go. I suppose the saving grace
I'm like Nick Frost and Hot Fuzz in that scene where he's like, shame. Cock and a shotgun. Shame.
It's the thing is like, it's a shame.
What am I going to use the shotgun for?
Only Thai representative go, but As far as the nation is concerned, the torch is still at least held high by Apudo and Patapan over on Talon. They're not, like, their presence isn't completely missing. The same is arguably true for Jupiter. It's sad to see what has been one of our mainstay Japanese teams. It is a bit of a mixed roster this season, but it's a shame to see them go as well. But you do still have Green Leaves maintaining the representation of that nation, doing relatively well in this tournament as well. Cyclone Coupling have preserved the presence of China. That we've still got, on the whole, we've got a widely represented region, as we always have. It's just a shame that as two new powerhouses come in, inevitably two old teams have to leave, and one of them is Xavier, a team that has made it as far as semifinals in the past, a team that has never quite pushed beyond that. You feel like they never reached their fullest potential.
But you also feel like the breaking point was getting close, even from last season. They barely escaped the bottom two, I think partially due to the fact that, okay, if it wasn't for the fact that both of those teams from last season in the bottom two were skill level-wise quite a few pegs below even where Xavier was, Xavier might have been eliminated, might have been relegated even last season. But this season, this time around, where we have Fire Society, we have Green Leaves, both teams from Trials doing very well, there just isn't any more room for teams to kind of crawl past the finish line. This time you just reach exhaustion beforehand, you've collapsed, the finish line is still fair while ahead of you. Cyclone Coupling's going to trip you up or something as they finally run across it themselves.
I feel like with how both of those halves ended in Time Bank, actually Xavier tripped over their own feet, but the point remains, Xavier end up getting eliminated. They're down into relegations. We may still see them again in a future season. Who's to say? They are a good team. They've got a wealth of experience behind them, and you feel like this team on their best day is still potentially a semifinals worthy team. Maybe they're just going to need to have a couple of good days in the course of trials coming into 2020. For Cyclone Coupling, they get to make another run into playoffs, and this is kind of, I would say, their third impossible season in a row where they've looked kind of all over the place and still managed to make it into the playoffs, still maybe even have a good run.
I want to use last season as the example again because, you know, that the comparison is... It's interesting because last season, technically, they tied in first place, 6-1. So, results-wise, you can't argue.
They didn't look like a third-place team.
This is the thing is, like, we can say, like, oh, they looked really rough last season, but actually, results-wise, they, like, beat everyone. This time around...
they knocked out Talon in
This time around, it does the results match how we feel about the team and how the team generally looks, which is to say they barely made it into the playoffs anyway. But now that they're here, let's see how far they can go. Still room to get a little bit further, especially now that we head into a DPS meta for them. And they got some good DPS players on their side. But speaking of good DPS players and good players in general, our last match of the regular season to close out the 3-3 GOATS meta is going to be Nova, MS, and Talon. But there will be a break first, so stick around. We'll see you all on the other side.